All right, family,
What's going on, Safe House?
we're back here to talk about purpose,
Power of purpose. It's the locomotive.
power of God-given purpose.
Mhm.
So if you're wondering, if you're with your forever person, you're like, why are we doing this? Or if you're on the journey to finding your forever person
Mhm.
and you're trying to figure out, why are we going to do this? Stay tuned for this episode. We're going to give you some tools and techniques to help understand purpose and hopefully discover your purpose.
Yes.
We'll be right back. All right, Safe House.
What's going on? What's going on?
It has been an exciting couple of weeks.
It has
here.
been. Oh my God.
So we hope you all were blessed by the transparency of the Terrell family.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
we were blessed by it.
Absolutely.
There is a lot to unpack there. So we suggest go back and watch it again because there's a lot of lessons that can be learned about what it's like to chase after your purpose, chase
Mhm.
after
Yeah.
chase after God in
I
order
like
to
that. Yeah.
bring things, back
Mhm.
into alignment. And
Yeah.
how no matter how bleak things look, no matter how much time has passed,
Mhm.
God doesn't abandon purpose.
Right. He never does. Oh, that's just kind of like leads us right into where we want to go. But before we do that, my hair.
You're looking
we've
beautiful.
been talking about my hair for the past few episodes and how I've just been trying to get that hairstyle together. And so, I've been working on my purpose and, trying to stay looking good for my man.
Check this out.
You're
looking
So,
beautiful, baby.
So I just want to say this is the one I think I'm going to settle on for a while.
Okay.
I hope you like it.
Yeah, it is. It's
You
very
know,
nice. It's
yeah.
very adult, very
Yeah.
alluring.
Yeah. So.
Luscious hair.
Found one.
All right, people, just remember to like, share, and subscribe. You're going to hit that bell, ring the bell
Ring
for
the
us.
bell. Ring
So
the
you
bell.
can get
Ding,
notified
ding, ding, ding.
on when we have content to share, when a new episode comes out. You don't want to miss it when we do some things. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and give us some comments as we go through this, as we journey through purpose.
Yes.
We got a lot of great comments from folks last week on the last two episodes, and it's been very, very engaging.
Mhm.
So we hope to continue that along. So it also tells the algorithm that y'all like what we're doing.
Mhm.
So the more you comment, the more you like and share, the more YouTube will say, hey, let's point some more folks to the good stuff that's going on in the Safe House.
Mhm.
Do that for us, please, and thank you. So now, purpose.
And it's kind of like what you said. I felt like this topic kind of came out of just kind of watching the episode.
Yeah.
And really listening to the Terrells and really, like you said, them moving away from God's purpose.
Yeah.
But then how God drew them back to his purpose. And so I just feel like it's just an important conversation for us to have as married couples and even for people who are single.
Yeah.
To really, even before you say I do, to really begin to ask yourself, okay, purpose, because some people don't even want to get married anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's kind of,
they don't understand the purpose in even getting married.
well, let's just, quote some statistics. Right now, the marriage rate is probably under 30%.
Yeah.
30% of adults are seeking marriage.
Yeah.
Right. In the 60s, that was somewhere near 80 to 90% if you look at the
Absolutely, yeah.
entire population. So marriage as a context and a concept in our modern society is very, very low value.
Yeah.
Even though what's really ironic, we've low valued it, but statistics also prove that once you're married, your income chances are higher, your chances of having a better retirement are higher, chances of higher education become higher, chances for generational wealth building increase. All of those things occur with family, even just, sort of tactically, the tax benefits and all these other things, being able to pool resources are just life benefits of marriage. And then you extend that to sort of a spiritual context that that this is God's demonstration of his relationship to the church in the earth, right? So you're a living example, a living epistle, if you will, of what God and the church, the bride and groom relationship between God and the church, what that really means.
Yeah.
And so there's many benefits to marriage, the marriage union. However, for some reason, at least, sort of some parts of society have abandoned it. You have other
Yeah.
communities that are fighting to gain that right
Oh, yeah,
because they
absolutely.
see the value in it.
Yeah.
But yet, most folks that live sort of a traditional life, they don't seem to value it as much.
Yeah. It's really interesting, like I said, because once again, if you don't understand the purpose of marriage, sometimes I don't think that's how our kids are. They're like, "What's the point?"
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's funny.
and that's a good question.
It's a good
What's the point?
It's a good question, but
Yeah.
it's really ironic that our kids would say that because they have benefited
Right. They
from us
have.
being married
Right.
30 some years, right? That's all they've experienced. They
Right.
had a, two-parent household, parents that were participating in their childhood and their upbringing. They had 2 points of view. They had all of
Yeah,
this stuff and all these
absolutely.
benefits. They understood what a stable spiritual household was like. So for them to sort of downplay marriage, I would just say that's more of an outside influence than an
Right.
internal
Yeah.
influence. There's
Like I said, I
something in
just found
society
it
that
very,
just
yeah, this was gonna say it's something in society that's just kind of like, I don't know if it's generational. I mean, it could be all of
yeah.
those different things. But like I said, that's why I felt like it was important for us to have, the conversation about purpose. And, one of the scriptures is Proverbs 29:18. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Mhm.
And so I feel like, once again, like I said, as we're talking about marriage and the purpose of marriage, if we're not really connected to the purpose of why we're getting married,
Mhm.
then the whole idea of marriage begins to perish.
It does.
People don't want to get married. We see more divorces, all those things. And so, like you said, so you almost, before you even say I do, you really do have to understand purpose.
Well, as a single person, when we look to get together with somebody, do we have in mind, I want to seek out a person that will help me fulfill my purpose in God, right?
Right.
We don't usually say that. We
We
say
don't.
we want a
Right.
person
We
of
didn't.
certain, we didn't, right?
Right.
We
We
want a certain,
absolutely didn't.
of certain
Right.
dimensions, of a certain intellect, sometimes a certain income level.
Yeah.
We say all of these physical attributes, they need to be caring and loving and communicative and vulnerable and, sort of a unicorn sort of person that we
Right.
describe out there. But in that
A
long
unicorn.
list, yeah, it is
It's
yeah.
like unicorns don't exist. Maybe that's why it gets kind of
Exactly.
crazy, because you're like,
Exactly.
we've created this whole concept that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
really work.
It is. If
It
you
doesn't
find this guy that
exist,
has
yeah.
all these things, he's going to have a horn on his head
Right.
sticking right because he will be a unicorn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but we don't add to that list. If we're going to make a unicorn list, just say, wow, who is the person that will join with me, that will partner with me in
Yeah.
fulfilling God's purpose for our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which sort of removes it from the self-satisfaction component
That
of
is
it.
true. That is true.
And I think a lot of the options that we give ourselves for divorce is because we don't have that mindset. Because if I go into a
Mhm.
union with the mindset that we're together for a reason, the reason doesn't go away just because we don't like each other right
Right.
now.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that, that was probably, one of the things that, not that I want to walk away a lot, but in those moments where you feel like you do kind of want to walk away,
hmm
and not necessarily because of you, but sometimes it's because of us. We're like, man, I just don't seem like I'm getting this thing right.
She trying to soften it up. I think she was
Yeah.
she was going to dump the brother a couple
No,
times.
I was gonna dump. I was gonna dump the brother.
Right. See how she changed that around? No, I wasn't. Yeah, I was.
I was, but you already know I was.
It's
You
okay.
already
All
know I
right.
was
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
dump you a couple of times. But what kept coming back
Right.
to me was that we had a God-given purpose.
Yeah.
And what I wasn't willing to do was to walk away from the God-given purpose
Yeah.
of
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
really, just like you said, just trusting God that He would do whatever needed to happen to get us both back on track. Because I never want to say that it's to me, it's both people have to be back on track. That to me is what a good foundation of purpose is when both people are on the same page. It's the same playing field.
Okay. Well, in the sales world, they have a phrase that says features tell, but benefits sell, right? So
Mhm.
what are the benefits of this purpose approach that you're talking about, because it's like, okay, that's all well and good, but guys like she got to have these kind of curves, and the ladies like he's got to have these kind of shoulders, and he's got to be a leader. He's got to,
Right.
but what are the benefits of purpose?
Well, I feel like one of the biggest benefits of purpose is direction. We know where we're going. We know what we're doing because, I'm the person that'll go left, and I'm the person that can have directions and still get lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I think with the GPS, and you don't trust the GPS system, whatever. But I feel like when you're in purpose with somebody else, like even when I go left, you're like, no, babe, we're supposed to, don't turn here. Remember, we're going right. Because when I'm by myself, I can tend to make mistakes, but knowing that I have you with me, that makes it, I know I got somebody to kind of pull me back. And so to me, that's one of the biggest things about purpose when you're doing it God's way, especially in marriage and in relationships. It's that nice balance, because I'm not expected to know everything, and so to me, that's a really big benefit of purpose, is direction. Like, so when I'm off, you can say, hey, bring me back to center.
Yeah, and what you just said is the absolute truth. And I use a phrase, it may sound like a cliche, but I say that, I say no because each no makes my yes more valuable, no more powerful. My yes is like currency, right?
Yeah. Wow.
The less yeses
that's
that are
good.
in circulation, the more valuable each yes is. And what direction gives from purpose, it gives us a rule set to say no to things, right?
Yeah.
Because what will happen is, as we're going along in life, we'll get confronted with different things. Here's different things you can try. Here's different options. And you'll be open to all of those things. But without sort of purpose and direction, you won't have anything to say what's right and what's wrong for us, right?
Yeah.
When we're choosing a church and a pastor, based upon the direction that we're going to go as a couple, what kind of church do we want to be a part of? Do we want to be a part of a shouting church? Do we want to be a part of a teaching church? Do we want to be a part of a conservative church? All of those things are part of our path. Do we want to develop friends in the investment community? Do we want to develop friends in the business community? All of those things sort of, give you, it keeps you from being distracted.
Yeah,
Because when you're curious and you don't know, you tend to be open to listening to everything, right? Let's be real. When we don't know, we're kind of getting opinions from everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, these days, information currency is low, so people can sound very, very credible and not know what they're talking about.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that direction and that purpose will give you a filter by which you both look at the world, how you make your investments. If our goal is to be millionaires by the time we retire, right? That means until we have some sort of liquidity moment, there's a lot of things in life that we will have to say no to based upon where we are. It's like, okay, we only make so much. We want to have $1 million nest egg when we retire. So that means, while we're going along, we may not be able to take as many trips. We may not be able to buy a new car every year, you know, but once again, I think that purpose gives us some rules.
I mean, I think purpose also gives you passion.
Yeah.
Like you said, it ignites something on the inside of both of us, because now we're both excited about the next.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like I said, couples, they get to a stagnant place and they don't know what's next. And so I feel like when you're having those conversations about what's next, and then, because once again, that's always going to be the platform for the conversation. Well, what's our purpose? What are we supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And what does that look like for both of us? And that, to me, that's like always the diving board. And then once we come up with stuff, now we're both excited. And where we were once like, it's going to be whatever. Now we're both kind of like, okay, I can. That's how I felt about Safe House.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, well, what do we do? What do we do next?
Yeah.
We had already, raised our kids. Our kids were grown and whatever. And so I feel like we're both very excited about Safe House.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, that to me is also a part of our purpose.
Yeah.
That's why God put us together. We didn't know that when we
at the time,
but that's the other thing too that's really important. Purpose comes out of growth.
Yeah.
Purpose comes out of maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, the things that we didn't know when we first got married, here we are 30 years in, our purpose is still like, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And not that we think we wasted time doing anything, but once again, it's the timing just happens to be now.
Yeah, if you look at the 30-some years of experience, we wouldn't be able to speak as authoritatively as we do now on certain topics, right? Because we have the benefit of direct experience in doing those things. You have a gifting and a calling as a teacher.
Yeah.
I have a technical sort of calling, and it's like, okay, through the time as we developed those things, it matured and sort of, blossomed into this thing now that we apply it in Safe House, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that'll be the only place where we apply it, right? But now we not only have purpose, fruit, evidence, we also have competency.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
and
good.
that's what's really, really good, because it's like, wow, whether it's a podcast about this or whether it's another technical thing that we want to do somewhere else or some sort of presentation, we now have this competency to do these things. So there's something, like you said, that passion, it awakens something,
it
right?
does.
And you find, I know at Safe House, I'm thinking about, okay, what's a cool way for us to make sure we capture audio cleanly, or when we have couples in, how do we set it up so that we can do different things? And you're researching things, and now you're a big user of ChatGPT. I introduced my wife to AI, and now she's an addict, right?
Well, let's see what they have to say about
right. But even still, just embracing technology and the desire to learn, right? That passion wakes up that, oh man, how can I do this better? How can I do this more efficiently? How can I do more? How can I get deeper, right? And that's the passion that really drives you forward. And it's a beautiful thing when you have that together, because it's like, hey, look what I figured out today. Oh man, that's cool. Let me try that, So it's a great thing.
And like I said, I feel like the same thing can happen, like I said, even when you're dating.
Yeah.
Because like I said, to me that's just the questions that you have to be asking. Like you said, whether you're newly dating, even for couples who are divorced and want to remarry. I think that type of question is really crucial to be asking, to be like, okay, well, I did this once, it didn't work. So now I do have to be asking myself, if I'm like seriously considering like remarrying, somebody different. I'm not even talking about like the Terrells who went back to marrying each other. I'm talking about if I'm really considering marrying somebody different, what's the purpose?
Right. And how can I make this marriage less about us and more about what God is designing?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because that's what will keep us together.
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
cheat code, right?
Yeah, that's the definite cheat code.
What will keep us together is not necessarily just our love for each other, because those things wax and wane. The physical attraction, that waxes and wanes.
Yeah.
The emotion and all that kind of stuff, it waxes and wanes. The purpose remains true.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just one purpose, right?
It's not.
So as you go through
powerful,
life, you will find that God will give you a purpose for this season. And then once that purpose is fulfilled, he'll give you another purpose for another season.
Absolutely.
Right? And so just don't think that we have one stagnant life purpose, and that we don't have the ability to be fluid and develop and move in the concept of purpose.
Yeah. I like that you're saying that, being fluid and being able to move, because sometimes that's something that I'm probably not, like very fluid. I'm kind of like, I like stability and, just staying here, but I'm learning how to be more fluid, because once again, God is fluid. God is like, I'm over here now, so I need you to be able to move, and I think speaking of that, I want to give a shout out to, couple of friends of ours, very good friends of ours, Danita and Joel Weidman. They're celebrating 30 years of marriage.
All right. Woo, Danita and Joel. All right. Great job.
But what's so cool about this next part is that the purpose of what they did next. So when you've been married for 30 years, okay, you might think about doing other things, but guess what they decided to do?
What did they decide to do?
They decided to run a marathon. Okay. They ran the Chicago Marathon, 26.2 miles on October 13th.
And they finished, right?
And they finished together.
Yeah.
Now, what's so cool about this is, so when you start saying how fluid you have to be, My girl Danita don't even like to run.
Right. She didn't prior to this, right?
She was like,
but
I don't
running
even
26
run.
miles, you have to learn how to like running, right?
You do.
Yeah.
But guess what the purpose was? They both landed on the purpose of this organization called World Vision. And a part of this organization was raising money for countries that don't have clean water. So that was the purpose.
Yeah.
That's what kept them both going.
Yeah.
You know, Danita didn't even she just came home and told Joe like, hey, signed us up for the Chicago Marathon, but why? What's the purpose in us running?
Yeah.
The purpose in us running is so we can raise money for World Vision. And so once again, that's what excited them. That's what gave them passion about making sure that they finished.
So this is an interesting note because we can sometimes misconceptualize what it means to embrace vision. You know, sometimes we think vision comes from on a high, or we sat down and we did a bunch of spiritual things and God gave us both this vision. No, sometimes we do collaborate and say, hey, how do you feel about this? Here's how I feel about this. We pray about it, consult other people, and we come up with a vision. Other times, one of the two will have a passion or will have a pursuit. And it's okay to say, you know what? I like your vision, right?
Yeah, that's
so
good.
I'm going to jump on that, and I'm going to be a partner. I used the word earlier, co-pilot, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? That doesn't mean, okay, well, whatever you're going to do. No, a co-pilot is a pilot, right? They're prepared to fly when the pilot's not ready. They're just just as capable as the pilot, right? They know every instrument in the plane just like the pilot. And if the pilot's disabled, they're able to fly the plane fully. You know, so just don't think because you're a co-pilot that it gives you an opportunity to be passive, right? So it may be, hey, I'm really passionate about this thing, and it's okay to latch onto that.
Yeah.
But once again, the important thing is latching onto that does not mean you just become passive. It means because you become an active partner, participant, cheerleader, whatever it takes, right? You know, so to add to that example, you know, when some 8-9 years ago, going on this journey of entrepreneurship, you know, when we stood up our business, one of the things that, you know, I said, well, yeah, you know, I may be the CEO, but this is our business.
Yeah,
right?
you've always said that.
This is our business because we're putting our family resources at risk in order to make it happen. We're doing this, and then the family will reap the benefits of it. That pay for college for kids,
did.
right?
Praise God.
You know, so yeah,
praise God. Real talk.
That's real, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, once again, that purpose, you know, unifying around that purpose made that dream come to life, right? Even though you didn't necessarily conceptualize that, or we didn't come up with it together.
Right. We definitely didn't come up with it together. But to your point, though, like you said, once we both got on the same page about it, it was like, let's go full steam ahead. You know, even me saying, okay, well, how can I work for the company?
Yeah.
You know, what?
Right. You became a contractor, right?
How can I help?
So the accounts payable person over here.
You know, I don't do accounts payable, but I was just like, okay, I can learn how to do it, because that was one of the things that we had kind of talked about too. You know, whenever you're coming into purpose, both people have to learn how to learn.
Yeah. Learning how to learn. Yeah. And that's great, because sometimes we think it all has to be figured out, right? And for the partner that may be latching on to the purpose of another, a big mistake is to say, well, they got to figure it all out. Right. Or once they figure it all out, then they can come back to me. You don't want to create a sort of a Mother May I situation where they have an idea or approach, and you're not willing to jump into it unless they have every T crossed and every I dotted.
Right.
And then if they do, you'll get angry because they have every T crossed and every I dotted.
Right.
You know?
That is true. That is true. Right.
So
you already did it. What am I here for?
Right. So really, you know, getting in and saying, okay, we have this idea. I've got to embrace it, right? How do I get involved, right? And then how do I go on the learning journey with you? You know, so what do I need to learn? Okay, we're going to get into real estate. Maybe our new purpose is real estate, right? You know, do I have to learn how to be a contractor? You know, shout out to our friends Rich and Brittany, right?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely,
You know, so he's like a do-it-all contractor, right? You know, and she's on the media side of things.
Right.
And so, you know, once again, you know, do I have to learn how to do those things? Do I have to learn how to sell houses? Do I have to learn, you know, do I have to learn real estate law? You know, it's like, you know, all of those things.
All of those things,
But once again, it's okay to not know. It's just if we're going to walk in purpose, part of this is we gotta get on the learning journey together.
Yeah. It's kind of like what you said. It's like everyone becomes smarter.
Yeah.
It's not like one person is getting smarter. We're both getting smarter.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, like you said, the purpose becomes everything that God wanted it to be and even better. When we're both in that place, because you can definitely see what happens when it's out of balance.
Yeah.
You definitely see what happens. So to me, like I said, that's why I thought it was important for us to kind of like have this conversation and kind of walk through like some of the benefits and what does it look like to actually to start, like you said, because to me, the biggest thing is what you said is it's like learning to learn together.
Yeah.
Everything is together. We become smarter together. We increase together.
Yeah.
And like you said, and it's not that and it's also making room for your spouse.
Yeah.
It's like you said, I don't know anything about the business, like I said, and especially in terms of what you were doing, but you made room for me. You said, hey, you could do this part. Because at first when it started, it was just like, I was like the spiritual advisor. I'm like, I could do that.
Right.
I can pray for it and I can pray us through and I could do all of that. But it was like, you know what? I want to do something else too. And so, like you said, it was, and I had to learn
how to
do that. I had never done that before.
Right. Sending out invoices, making collection calls.
Right, making collection calls. That part. Exactly.
Yeah. But you developed a skill, right?
Did.
You developed a skill and a cadence, and you had
cash
a
is
method.
king.
Cash is king.
Give us our money. Exactly. But it was purpose. And like I said, I'm just excited about, where that took us and everything that we were able to benefit from that. I feel like we're better people.
We are.
Because of it.
And that journey is somewhat over, right?
Yeah.
So we're on a different journey.
We're on a different journey
now, right?
Yeah.
And but once again, that was that purpose for that time.
Yeah.
Now I'm an employee now, so it's a different purpose for this time, right? And so it's good, and so now we're supporting each other in different ways. Your career as a teacher is starting to take off a little bit, and then now we have this thing called Safe House that we're investing in, right? So a lot of different purposes over time, a lot of different learnings over time. I think in every case we had to learn something new.
We had to learn something new.
Some skill was stretched. Some understanding was flipped upside down. Like, oh man, I didn't know that. But what's great about it is just being open to that journey and not being worried about the unknown.
Because it is a journey.
It's a journey. And there's going to be mistakes made. There's going to be there's going to be some assumptions. There's going to be all of that, right? But that's part of the experience of learning to learn.
Yeah.
Learning, when babies learn how to walk, guess what happens? They fall.
They do.
But you see those babies, they fall down, they bang their butt on the ground, and then they rock and get right back on up.
And the next thing you know, they running down the hallway.
They running, right? Before they can walk good, they running.
You're like,
before they can
happen?
walk good, they climbing on stuff,
that is
right?
true.
They're trying to test the limits of this new ability that they have, right?
But I think what's so powerful about that analogy is that's how we become.
Yeah.
Because like you said, when we stay in our little bubbles and we're like, we're not growing, and God expects us to, kind of like what he told Adam and Eve, multiply, expand,
have dominion.
Have dominion. And so really understanding like what that looks like in our own homes and in our relationships to take dominion over certain things. So to me, that's also the cheat code, like you said, when you're dating, to really, like you said, outside of just having the conversations like, what you want your man to look like or what you want your girl to look like on the outside, you really do have to say, okay, God, with the person that you want me to be with, what is that going to look like? How are they going to balance out the gifts that you've put on the inside of me?
What else is cool is it's okay if we don't have a purpose, because now the purpose is, let's discover our purpose.
Yeah, that's real good. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like what I tell the kids at school. I'm like, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do.
It's okay, right?
We can figure it out together.
Let's discover our purpose together.
That's really good.
And that's just a journey by itself, because now it gives you a license to try absolutely everything, right?
That's how you wind up running a 26.2 marathon.
That's how you end up in a marathon, right?
Exactly.
And once again, how much training, how much lifestyle change? Because you don't wake up in the morning and you run 26 miles.
Yeah,
How much lifestyle change did they both have to embrace to be fit enough to do this race without hurting themselves?
That's
it's not
true.
just about running the race.
Yeah.
We want to be able to do this without us having, a coronary.
Right.
And
we're going to cross the finish line together.
We're going to cross the finish line together,
so,
right?
even though you may be a faster runner than me, I now have to learn how to keep pace with you.
Right.
Come on,
and
Jesus.
I have to manage my pace so that we cross together. Even though I may have an urge to move fast and go, and I may have more ability. No. This is a together thing.
Yeah.
So I have to control my pace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They say strength is power under control, not necessarily your ability to exert force, but understanding when to not exert force, right? Understanding when to not to press the gas, right?
That's good.
So, yep. So hopefully, Safe House, you got something out of that. Remember the benefits of purpose. And then we gave you some cheat codes and some things to try to help discover purpose. Mm-hmm. So now, what say you? Have you and your forever person discussed purpose?
Yeah.
Put in the comments below. Share with us what you think. Share with us if you have a purpose, what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that you've tried. And what I want people to do, too, is not be so negative, because we tend to jump to the negative things.
We do.
Believe it or not, you and your significant other, you or your forever person, you're the person you're dating, you probably have done something. You just haven't given it credit.
That's true. That's real talk right there.
Yeah, so just look back. It's like, wait a minute, we did do something together. We did, even if it's something small, it's like, wait a minute, we went on a dune buggy ride together.
Which I will not be doing again.
That's another story for another day.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, but we did this together, right?
We did it together.
We didn't know how to do it, either one of us. We got together and said, let's try this, and we made it through it. In whatever state we made it through, we're on the other side of that. So think about that. Give us some comments below. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. And if what we said agrees with you, put a like on it.
If what we said you disagree with, just tell us about it.
Just tell us about it, right? And we'll straighten up and fly right.
That's
right.
Real talk.
This experiment called Safe House is a continuous improvement process.
Yes,
so if there's topics that you disagree with, let us know. And we'll let you know whether or not we'll course correct or we'll just agree to disagree.
Exactly.
Right. Let us know about topics you want to talk about, too, because we're always looking to help people dig deeper into the topics they're curious about. So
we love you guys.
We love you all. And as we end every episode, we end this one with a peace.